Uh, Let me just kick this off because I just realized it's 7. All right. Let's start. All right. I think we're live. Let me see. Yeah, participants are rolling in. So we're live. Welcome, everyone. And welcome, Bryan.
Thanks.
And so, I mean, tell us, everyone, where you're joining from. We'll wait a couple of minutes for people to roll in. You can use the little chat functionality. Just pop in where you're joining from. And in the meantime, a couple of things while we wait for people. Number one is, I know it's the second week that I say this, but it's a big announcement. So we launched PlatformCon a couple of weeks ago. Hello, Eskil from Denmark. And so here is the page for anyone who missed it. Nope, this is the wrong one. Here, let me send it here. Yeah, we're really proud. It's the first ever conference just on platform engineering. So it's really kind of a way to celebrate our community, our platform engineers, our community speakers. For the past year and a half, we've been hosting events every week. So it's pretty big at this point. So yeah, go check it out if you haven't yet. Sign up. It's free. It's 100% virtual. So pretty excited about that. All right. Numbers look good. Let's just wait a couple more seconds. In terms of housekeeping, I just remind you all, session will be recorded. It's being recorded right now, and will be shared later per email. So probably tomorrow morning. So don't go crazy taking notes. Just enjoy, ask questions. In terms of format, we wanted to keep this really open. So really just as an AMA. So Bryan and I will have a chat. I'll ask him some questions. Anyone feel free to jump in and ask your questions. We really want to keep it as not boring as possible and as engaging as possible, and just really making specific to what you want to find out from Bryan. Bryan needs a little introduction. Is the distinguished engineer of the defense unicorns. He was one of the sort of leader behind the DevOps Dojo at Walmart. That was one of the main initiatives to help product teams with platform adoption within Walmart. So this is what we are going to talk about today. If anyone has questions, we can already start with your questions. So I'll start by opening it up if anyone wants to pop anything in. Otherwise, I certainly have a few ready for you, Bryan. But in the meantime, if you want to start saying a few introduction or so. Oh, we already have a question. There you go.
So I'm Bryan Finster. I've been a software engineer for a lot of years, and a big chunk of that was at Walmart. I started off in supply chain at Walmart and wound up in platform, and I've spent 19 years at Walmart. And we were working on early on piloting continuous delivery back in around 2014. We were trying to figure out how to do CD in supply chain, and we learned a whole bunch of lessons from that along the way. That it wasn't just the tooling; there was a lot more involved to get to being able to go to production safely daily, which was where we landed. And later I moved up to platform to help with a broader global initiative. How do we bring continuous delivery to every team in Walmart? And so that was, I think it's really important to understand that, yeah, we're building a platform and the tooling is really important. But the tooling was also specifically designed to make CD flows easy, trunk-based development, continuous integration, these things were easy, while other flows were not impossible. So you could still use Git flow and deliver terrible outcomes at the end, but all of the metrics were not going to be in your favor, and the platform was going to be painful to use. But that was also part of a broader sort of strategy we had because we were looking at it holistically. We also were building communities, and it wasn't just in platform. Platform was supporting these communities, but the communities were outside of platform. So we were trying to grow and foster these communities, hosting DevOps days with internally. We also had massive executive support where not just talking from the CTO, but actual active participation, including in community meetings, coming in and just being part of the community meeting. We had the metrics, of course. What we did with metrics, we were pulling in delivery metrics, and we started gamifying things around continuous integration, truck-based development, and pipeline stability, that sort of thing, to encourage people to, hey, let's make these things better. And then we had my team, which, we were the DevOps Dojo. We started off as the CD Sherpas. We were not agile coaches. We were all engineers who had done this for real in product teams in Walmart or other places. And we were helping people with that. And sometimes it wasn't even with our platform. It might have been with whatever platform they were using as we started migrating people, or through using PeopleSoft or SAP. I mean, how can we help them apply CD practices to what they're doing? And so our job was to really help teams with the struggles that were very common on every single team, with breaking down work, testing, teamwork, pipeline architecture. I mean, all these problems, just really common basic problems that we were helping teams with all the time.
Nice. Yeah, and you mentioned a couple of things there. And so Sherpa, is that a concept that you guys came up with, or did you borrow it?
Sherpas?
Yeah.
Originally there was Sherpas whose job was to help teams migrate to cloud. So they were on-prem and then migrating to cloud. And so they were architects who could help with the challenges they were having there. And then we stood up the dojo. There's enterprise dojos are a thing. I mean, if you go out there, Capital One has a dojo, Target has a dojo, John Deere has a dojo, and they're all branded, right? Like the American Airlines dojo is the hangar. And for Walmart, we already had the Sherpa organization that was recognized as people to help you along the way that knew the path and could help you get there. And so we just became the CD Sherpas for quite a while, and then got tired of people misusing DevOps as a term, so we just rebranded as the DevOps Dojo so we could own it and explain that it's not a job, it's how we work.
Right. Nice.
So.
And I guess that answers Eska's questions as well. He was asking, what is a dojo? Did you have like an exact definition internally?
We do, and there's actually a dojo consortium out there of the enterprise dojos, made up of Fortune 100 companies, and a few people that actually have businesses helping. A dojo is an immersive learning process and there's a few varieties of this, but there's a standard pattern you'll see where teams will come in they volunteer to come in, they ask to come in. This is not something where teams are assigned to go do. This is not remedial training. This is your advanced degree that you apply for permission to do. And you come in for a 6-week challenge. Different dojos will have different varieties of challenge. Because of we had an enterprise goal of everybody doing CD. The only challenge we did was how do we get you closer to continuous delivery. And so in 6 weeks, you would be running 2.5-day hyper sprints to work closer towards the goal, identify where your constraints are, and work together to solve the problem of how do we get to where we're trying to go. And, it's a very disciplined approach, and you get dramatic improvements in a short period of time, and sustainable improvements as well, because you're engaging the people you're working with, not just telling them, you do this, but hey, let's solve this problem together as engineers. They're bought into the solutions. They see the improvement that happens to their daily work, and they keep driving with it. In fact, when I've had times in the past where they'd have a manager change, the manager didn't understand and started driving them backwards. And that team that we hadn't worked with for months would come back and say, please help us. Please help us change their mind. So yeah, it was very effective. And we always got lots of thank yous from the teams and from leadership.
And so you were working not just on the platform initiative per se. You would just help out like different parts of the engineering organization, different
We
teams.
had a global initiative to drive improved delivery, right?
That was the
Now,
focus, right?
that was the focus. Now we were funded out of platform.
Right.
Eventually, we would have, there was an attempt to move us out, and then leadership changed, and people have changing priorities, and make its report to the CTO. But it was just we didn't care. Our goal was tool agnostic. It didn't matter.
Hmm.
Using your tools, how do we improve things? Now we know how to do it easier with platform tools because that's what we
Right.
use all the time.
Hmm.
But we don't care. We can apply these same things to your tools. Let's just get it done and help us learn how your tools work so we can get it done with you.
100%. 100%. Um, and and so obviously, you part of your, or I guess like taking a step back, delivery, right? Like delivery was your focus. Why did you pick delivery as the starting point, as the lever for changing
Mm.
or improving the organization?
Delivery exposes all the problems that prevent you from delivering. I mean,
Hmm.
the problem that I have, and I'll use the term agile industrial complex a lot. I really don't
Hmm.
like all of the certificate mills that have sprung up and all the shake and bake agilists and experts. Okay, agile is the ability to deliver with agility. It's the ability to respond rapidly to issues in production and also feature delivery in production. And people forget about the operations part. Having carried a pager for high availability systems that had to be up all the time or we lose millions of dollars a day, uh,
Hmm.
I cared deeply about operations and not being woken up. And so the ability to deliver rapidly is key. And what we discovered early on when we were piloting CD is that why can't we get working, tested, non-breaking code to the trunk every single day exposes so many problems. In fact, if you just start with CI and solve the
Right.
problem of we have to have working, backwards compatible code on the trunk that can be delivered as far as we know right now every single day, then you start uncovering problems with, well, we don't test very well and people keep assigning us work, so we keep working in silos instead of working as a team to get the most important thing done. And we have really vague requirements we need to break down better. I mean, you just find all these roaches that are hiding in your process, where if you focus on how well do we do stand-ups, you don't find them. And
Hmm.
so driving towards getting things done starts showing out why can't we get things done, and you have to start fixing them to get things done. And there's low level metrics you can wrap around it that are just non-contextual. Delivery, actual delivery is contextual to what you're delivering and the environment you're delivering in. But the CI flow is not contextual.
Right.
We need stories that last less than 2 days, and Paul Hammett will say 1 day because that gives us a level of clarity to say, yeah, we understand what we're doing, that we agree that we have testable acceptance criteria, that we can get all this done in less than 2 days. We understand how the interfaces are going to change, all that's done. All defined, implement, right? As a team. And we need code on the trunk every single day. Why can't we do that? And by driving towards those outcomes, you have to solve all these problems. In fact, I'm going to be talking Thursday at DevNexus about minimumcd.org, where we'll be talking about this thing that driving towards minimum CD, driving towards CI is the lever to make your life better.
Hmm.
Because
How do you find minimum CD?
so if you go to minimumcd.org,
Yeah, Patrice just posted it.
yeah, then we have our definition of minimum CD, and we've got over 30 contributors globally to that website, where we've tried to hammer down what's the absolute minimum viable continuous delivery that you should start with to see the benefits that we expect to see from continuous delivery, the real thing, not just we have automated build and deploy. And so, yeah, that's what I'm going to be talking about on Thursday at DevNexus. But it's an
Nice.
incredibly effective tool to focus on delivery instead of focus on process.
And so that's like so that's how you picked kind of like your focus from a life cycle and process perspective.
Yeah.
In terms of teams, did you pick a starting point, or as you said, was it more just kind of like I put a net here and I let inbound sort of interest from different teams come to me?
We sold like crazy. I mean, this is a brand new thing no one
Mm,
had ever seen inside Walmart before.
right.
And there've been agile coaching orgs, but that's not what we did, right? We were doing immersive learning, and that's a brand new thing. And so we went all over the place, went and talked to directors to see if they had any teams that we could talk to ask them if they'd be willing to volunteer. And I'll say it took us about 2 months to get organized. We also reached out to other dojos for tips so we could rapidly accelerate and not start from zero. And so we went and visited Verizon's dojo for 3 days and just collected information because Verizon's Walmart's vendor, so we had an NDA, we could see anything, right?
Nice.
And we just started collecting information. And then once we got organized, we started identifying teams and also learning which teams not to go after anymore. Oh, your team has 20 people. Okay, not a good fit for the dojo. We can give you some tips. We can give you some short, specific tips on things to improve so you can become a good fit for the dojo. But 20 people is too big, things like that. Only once did we ever take a team where the manager suggested they come in instead of the team asking to come in, and we
Mm,
decided to never do that again because the team wasn't interested. It was a waste of time for both of us.
right.
But,
Right.
yeah.
And so, what was the ideal team then, from your perspective?
Ideal team, an absolute ideal best case team, which hardly ever happened, right? Would be a
Mm,
team where they have sole component ownership. They own their all of their repositories. Nobody else touches the repositories. They have a discrete product component that they own, that they can already deploy independently of something else, but just don't do it very well right now, or could do it better, or want to improve, right?
mhm.
That it's 10 people or less would be ideal. And also we really wanted to have like 60-70% of the team to be co-located. It's very difficult to
Interesting.
deal in that environment with someone who's remote because we weren't set up really for remote work at the time.
Mhm.
And so the communication was always lagging, and this takes a lot of really fast communication because we're delivering every 2.5 days or
Right.
not, and finding out why and how we get back to delivering every 2.5 days. And so that includes delivery retrospective, coming up with the next thing we're going to deliver, and then doing it again
Right.
in 2.5 days. I mean, it takes a lot of tight communication to get that done.
Yeah. Interesting. And how were you structuring then? So let's say this ideal sort of pizza team type of thing comes to you, and how do you structure that process with the team? How do you structure the trainings with them?
Well, and like I said, we had a disciplined process. Number one, we take the team out on a date. We'd say, like, look, full disclosure, this is what's going to
Dojo
be.
date.
Yeah, dojo day. So number one, we need at least 6 hours of dedicated time with you every single day, no exception, right?
Hmm.
If there's an issue, we'll be there with the issue with you, but we need at least 6 hours of your time for 6 weeks. This is what we're going to be doing. And we'd walk them through what a 2.5 day sprint looked like. And it would just blow a lot of people's minds. Like, no, this works really well. You'd be surprised. And like my wife's team actually ran 2.5 day sprints for 2 years as their primary flow. Now they're up to a week,
Uh-huh.
right?
Okay.
They've slowed down to a week. And then we'd go through the process of, okay, let's tell us about your application. What is its goal? Do you have a mission for the application? Who are your stakeholders? If we need to clear impediments, who do we talk to? Who's your director, your product? Who do you have on the business side? I mean, who all do we talk to? If there's a blocker, we have to clear it, and we're here to help you clear that, and we'll go and get that done for you because we have air cover to ruffle feathers if needed.
Hmm.
And what's your architectural diagram? If you don't have one, let's draw one because we need to be able to talk and test. And if we don't understand your architecture, it's very difficult for us to talk about how to test it effectively if it's not tested now.
Right.
And then we'd come up with a working agreement that included things like when lunch was going to be. We can't just take random lunches. We're going to have, for 6 weeks, we all take the same lunch because we don't have many hours, right?
Right.
We have to be together. The time, it's a very expensive process. You have to maximize the time together. We had definitions for ready for a story or task, definitions of done, which included production. We had just basic housekeeping things so we could all work cleanly together and understand what we were saying and move to the goal. And if they were bought in with that, then we would schedule a meeting and value stream map their current process. And the value stream map was incredibly powerful. We would do it for teams without going through a dojo engagement because it just visualizes their pain. You can see right there in the value stream map where they're hurting. And we've had teams go, wow, I didn't even know, because they're just in the pain every single day. They don't feel it.
And you talked also earlier about executive buy-in. So how did that look like at the beginning, and then how did that look like throughout? Right. So when you had to ruffle feathers, like what was that process like?
Well, and I tried not to ruffle feathers too high a level. I mean,
Right.
there's always some level of blowback.
Not too executive feathers, yeah.
I'll say also that there's a certain level of not caring about consequences you need if you're going to be a red shirt and trying to disrupt an organization the size of that. And I honestly didn't care. I could get another job if they fired me. And so, yeah. But initially what you had was a challenge from the CTO. I want every team to have the ability to deliver to production daily. And then that was measured. As an organization, how are we doing at daily production delivery? And those metrics were talked about in every quarterly meeting with the CTO, the all hands meeting. And we were reporting those metrics. I mean, the second tool we built after a CI tool was the ability to measure delivery, because we knew how critical the metrics were to our organizational goals. Before we had an orchestration engine, we had metrics. And then also, if there was a blocker at like a director or VP level, I'd just go have a meeting with the CTO and say, we need your help. Right? Or the director of platform would meet with the CTO and say, we need your help. Right? We would, we had our community of practice around CD that was called Continuous Chai for reasons that are too long to get into. And you got T-shirts if you presented a Continuous Chai. Well, JK, the CTO, he came and presented a Continuous Chai meeting, which, by the way, having the CTO show up to a community meeting is an excellent way to have that meeting get incredibly large, because people want to be seen supporting the community.
Yeah.
And so there's a presentation my wife and I gave. We were presenting him with his Continuous Chai T-shirt, because even though he paid for it, he couldn't have one unless he presented it. I mean, it was active involvement from the CTO and not just lip service. He was supporting behind the scenes, supporting overtly, and funding the effort. So it was active encouragement and not just, I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, that's super important. All right, let's get some questions, because there's a couple here. So Matt is asking, how do 2.5 day sprints work? Do they do retros? If so, how often? When and how does sprint planning work?
Well, if you're doing sprint planning, if you're doing work prioritization correctly, then you're continuously refining work, and sprint planning is a really short, okay, well, we know how much we generally deliver as far as, throughput. And so we have this many things, draw a line, go, right? It shouldn't take forever to do sprint planning. A lot of people, I think, try to do all of the work they should have been continuously doing in one meeting. Retros, every 2.5 days. Because the goal of the retro was, okay, we either did or didn't deliver what we thought we were going to deliver in 2.5 days. Now let's talk about why that is, what we should do more of, what we should do less of, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. We did demo every 2.5 days. Now, see, the thing is that demo, retro, those are absolutely non-negotiable if you're trying to get things done. Other ceremonies, do them if they add value. Right? don't do a ceremony for the sake of a ceremony. Have a meeting because it's valuable, or don't have the meeting at all. But we would demo the fact that here's what we did, or here's what we didn't do but we wanted to do, and so this is we don't have anything to demo because we missed, we couldn't, we're learning, right? I'll say that you fail a lot in 6 weeks for about the first half, then you stop failing a lot less.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But failure is the expectation. We're trying to uncover problems. You're not going to be good at it at day one. If you're good at it day one, you wouldn't need us.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, I mean, you do a full, whatever you would do in a 2-week sprint that actually adds value, because a lot of things just don't. You do those, only, retro's half an hour, demo's half an hour. Sprint planning's, 15 minutes. All right, let's get back to work. Let's solve the problems.
Amazing. And speaking of ceremonial stuff, Eric just popped in like 4 questions. One of them, what did you do to define metrics that matters versus vanity metrics? So what ways did you use to cultivate buy-in at the team and exec level for metrics, especially lagging indicator metrics that take time to show success? That's a good question.
Yeah, so actually I spent all last year talking about how to misuse and abuse DORA metrics, which came from a lot of lessons that we learned, when we were trying to solve this problem. We focused on metrics that indicated we were getting the behaviors that led to outcomes. So the leading indicators that we really focused on were code integration frequency. So if you had a team of 5, how often was the team on average integrating code to the trunk? And only the trunk. People asked us to measure develop because they were doing git flow. I'm like, no, trunk. That's all that matters. And if you're integrating code to the trunk once a month because you're doing git flow, then you're integrating once a month. And then also the duration of a story or task. Because we knew from our experiences doing this for real that big stories never ship and they always have defects. Small stories are going to give us a high level of clarity to allow us to reliably deliver what we expected to deliver. And so do the real work of decomposing the work and defining the testable outcomes before you start coding, and don't do that while you're coding, and then CI actually works. And so those were leading indicators for downstream quality. And then lagging indicators, there was some, by the time I left, we didn't have everything instrumented I wanted to have instrument, but we were absolutely tracking deploy frequency.
Right.
We should have been pushing for ways to to track defect rates. When you're dealing with, 19,000 developers, it's hard to get everybody to report things the same way so you can track defects.
All right.
So it was not a solved problem when I left. But defect rates, because you need that offsetting metric to make sure that you're not just driving speed, you're trying to drive quality. Quality is an outcome of, small things delivered frequently and inspected to make sure that it actually is the quality we thought in our quality process.
Right.
So, I mean, we were absolutely using a chunk of the DORA metrics, but not in the way a lot of people do. We were using them as health indicators and not as goals. And that's very important. And so there's more metrics you can look at, but from the point of view of I need to get rapid information about whether we're getting better or worse, the CI metrics and delivery metrics. But of course, the delivery metrics are very contextual.
Right.
Right? I mean, if you're delivering to a submarine, it's a different problem than if you're delivering a web app to the cloud.
Yeah. The nuclear submarine, especially.
Yeah, well, it could be that there's problems like that I'm now associated with, because my company deals with how do we deliver to harder problems.
Right. Let's go back to the list. So Venkatesa was asking, always when we talk about a CD, we tend to think from an engineering perspective, but how do we actually get product owners into the CD mindset? Or rather, how do we get started that way?
I always started with behavior-driven development. That was the very first impediment we ran into, was clear definitions of what a thing should do so we could stop having arguments. And when you start walking people through BDD and how that gives you the ability to just microscopically slice things into vertical slices that can be delivered. And then it's a matter of making sure that that product owner is not, you know, outside the team, that they are a team member.
Right.
That they understand what's going on. They're part of the flow, the ongoing conversation about how we're delivering. That they don't need to understand the technical parts, but they need to be in the environment where they're hearing the technical parts, and can just kind of feel what's going on, and just kind of get sucked in. And it takes time to show them, because the challenge you're going to get a lot of the times, and this is not just from product owners or people in the business, it's also from other developers. Oh, it's not valuable until it's done. No, this piece is valuable because we know it doesn't break. And that just told us something very important. It gives us confidence to ship the next piece that doesn't break. And, we're always looking for how do we get, as much feedback as we can at every step of the way. And I'll tell you that it took a little bit of time to get the product owners adjusted, but once we did, they were super happy that we could just at the drop of a hat inject a new feature and deliver it tomorrow, instead of waiting for the next release train.
Yeah.
That madness.
Constantine is asking, how do you manage feature flags? Do you use some homebrew solution or any third-party service or platform?
Well, from the dojo perspective, however they manage feature flags. From a team perspective, different teams had different solutions for that. I mean, when you're talking about something as big as Walmart, there's so many different kinds of delivery problems that you have that there's not a solution. Like, you're not going to use Launch Darkly to deliver to the edge in a distribution center where there's a firewall and you can't get outside except to talk to home office. Right. So you have to, and so you either have to homegrown a solution or get something that's on-prem. And so it just depends, right? Now, Dojo, we train people how to use feature flags and also how to maintain them so they didn't get out of hand. Like, hey, if you know this is a temporary feature flag and not a feature that we're going to have this feature flag, then the last story is to delete the feature flag. In your epic, so make sure you have a plan for change management when you do this. Don't just kind of throw stuff at the wall. That's part of engineering.
Yeah, interesting. And maybe from my side, what was the relationship of the Dojo team to I guess did you have like one core platform team or multiple ones, or actually building the tooling?
The platform was made up of multiple tools, and all of us, I was, my role is, inside platform, I was product owner of the dojo, right? And so every platform team had a product owner. They were all very technical. They either came from infrastructure or from product teams. And we all collaborated on what the platform goals were going to be, and then how each one of our products would support that platform goal. And so the role of the dojo, I took it very seriously that one of our jobs was to inform platform of challenges people were having and see how we can help make the platform better or find new things. We were the eyes and ears of the platform. We were also generally the first people to use the platform, instead of like support on a particular tool. Hey, I'm struggling with this particular tool, but how do we use the platform in general? They talk to the dojo. Also, our role, as I saw it, was to bubble up systemic problems in the enterprise up to the CTO level. We have these broader problems, or up to training. Hey, training, we have these broader problems we should probably throw some attention on. And also, I looked at our job as to help clear the way for teams, to be that, those people who could advocate for the teams. So I really looked at it as, we real developer advocacy. We'd go talk to your director about the problems he's causing on the teams and how it's impacting his ability to deliver in a very nice way, so he would want to be on board.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's just that constant communication, up, down, sideways on everything, and trying to make everything better all the time.
Got it. Interesting. And let's go back to Eric's list. So what challenges have you faced with Agilists, product owners, managers, and engineers with regard to shifting to outcome thinking versus output and process thinking? So how did you help them understand the sort of conceptual difference?
So number one, I could have a strong bias. I'm really biased against people who identify as agile coaches who don't understand what CI is. If you can't walk through the needs of continuous integration, nothing else left of continuous integration, none of that practice can you do well, because all of that stuff is stuff to help CI.
Hmm.
Okay. And so if you went to a shake and bake agile class and got a certification, you're not an expert, you have a learner's permit. Why don't you pair up with some people who understand CI and learn the real problems? And then all the stuff that you want to do is going to make a lot more sense.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, and so when it comes to output versus outcome, well, that's going to come down to incentives from the executives. If they're focused on output, then everybody's going to care about output. If they want better business outcomes, they're going to focus on that. And so when you start explaining, look, you're just telling us that, I know companies where they give bonuses on number of features shipped.
Hmm.
All right. That's terrible.
Hmm.
And so you educate them. Look, if we do these things, then we can deliver better outcomes because number one, it might take less work to get it done because we're going to be delivering smaller things more quickly. And they might say, oh, cool, that works for us. And all this other stuff that we thought that we had to deliver, we just don't deliver. Because by the way, the requirements are wrong or we're going to misunderstand them or they're going to change before we can deliver. And so since the requirements are wrong, we need to fail small. Let's find out how wrong they are, make them less wrong, and then stop. Because the best code is the code not written.
Right.
That's just less code to support.
Totally. All right. So Srun's asking, have you ever faced any company where a company has multiple feature teams and every team pushes the stuff in different microservices repos, front end and back end? So how do you look at CD in those aspects? And then you follow up saying there are too many microservices and you end up with too many interdependencies. So how do you see CD in this aspects and how do you deal with it?
Oh, that was actually the situation when we were piloting because the very first thing we did was we had a giant monolith. It was 25 million lines. It ran most of our distribution center. It was literally the size of Windows. With a giant entangled database, it was, and we were delivering that every quarter with scheduled week-long war rooms for the blowups that happened every quarter we delivered. And the reason we were going after CD is because our leadership wanted us to do that every 2 weeks. And then we had a visionary SVP who was like, you know what, I've read some things and there's some ideas over here. Go do this. I trust you guys. Right? And so we went and did domain decomposition of the system into the business domains. We aligned teams to those business domains. We set non-negotiables at the team level, and we were gonna, a lot of us joined the teams. We weren't just ivory tower, right? That you had to have a domain diagram that talked about what the services in your particular domain were and how they connected to the broader domain of the entire broader product of the warehouse management system. Okay. And we did a lot of education on architecture. And so, you can have a lot of services with a lot of dependencies if you have really bad architecture, but that's not really how microservices are supposed to be built. And we did a lot of education and learning and focusing on that. And we ran small experiments and expanded from that. And so the team I was on, we were only responsible for just receiving freight through a door. Just that one problem. And we had 8 services on a front end and I had Hygeia on tab rotate to make sure all our pipelines are green at all times. And we were doing continuous delivery across all those. We had clean interfaces with the teams upstream and downstream we needed to talk to. We took, the principles of DDD very seriously when we were talking about those interfaces and how teams should handle data. And so we architected for delivery is how we did it. We didn't just kind of architect for, what I heard at a conference one time.
Conference driven, right?
I hate conference driven development, but seriously, if you want to do this well, you have to architect for it, and it takes design. It's not just throw shit at a pipeline. Pardon me, but it's not like we have a pipeline and look, we're doing a CD and then slam into a wall. That's not what it
Yeah.
is. It takes design and thoughtfulness to get this done.
Mhm. And so what did you define, what did you do to define and design a culture, sort of the ways of thinking and guiding principles to help teams sort of go towards this new world?
Marketing, literally marketing. We had internal DevOps days. We would
Hmm.
bring in external industry speakers, Donovan Brown and Gene Kim, and I mean we'd bring in people who could speak to it. We had, the director of platform was Jason Van Zyl, who
Oh
like
yeah.
Jason. Anybody in the Java community should know Jason Van Zyl, and he was leading the platform effort. So he'd be up on stage talking about his experiences with CD, and like the Swiss infotech industry. I'm sorry, fintech industry. And I got hired actually after I gave a presentation about solving the problem. How to hired in a platform after giving a presentation on how to break down the elephant of continuous delivery and eat it a piece at a time. And so just sales, and we were doing a lot of sales in the dojo. We were doing lunch and learns and explaining how this makes your life better and how change this and try this and these things will improve your life. And people would try things, get more interested, and then they'd talk to us more.
So you came in as an external consultant at first. I
No,
didn't
no,
know.
no, 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 no. That's not what I mean. No, I was just one of the speakers, an internal
Mm.
speaker
Oh, an
at
internal
DevOps
speaker.
Day,
Sorry,
but I wasn't in
gotcha.
platform. I was in supply chain, and so he
I
stole
see.
me from supply chain into platform
I see.
because I had these thoughts and ideas that could help. So he
Hmm.
he poached me.
Love that. All right. Well, Eric keeps popping questions. What are ways you decompose value slices for solutions that require everything to do anything? For example, data access solutions requiring IAM, audit, catalog, and so on. And we have someone else also chiming in.
I'll say there's ways. I don't have an answer for that specific problem off the
Mm.
top of my head. We would have to sit down together and walk through it and figure out how we can organize that into incremental delivery that we can keep validating. Because the last thing you want to do is solve it all and then install it and then stay awake all night. I optimize for sleep. And so I'm absolutely going to find ways to break it down tiny. Now, can we get everything done in less than 2 days? Yeah, I mean, maybe not. But the edge cases on that are so rare that I hardly ever run into them.
Yeah.
And just to say, I am not a theoretician. I am
Mhm.
an active developer on a team on Platform One for the Air Force today. I have not stopped developing. So I practice what I talk about. I know it works.
Right. And I guess like with that, like what do you see as, looking at building on top of your Walmart experience, Air Force experience, like what do you see as now kind of like the key trends in platform engineering that you want to bring into your organization and the teams that you work in that gets you excited?
Well, there's a lot of trends I wish would go away.
Yeah, I knew you would start with that.
Yeah, and one of those is hiring DevOps positions. We've just created a new silo called DevOps. If it's platform engineering, call it platform engineering. DevOps is the union of people, process, and product to enable the continuous delivery of value to the end user. It's how we organize everything. It's not a job. Uh, and uh, and CD is a tool. CD is about 10% tool. I've had other people respond to me recently that it's 5% tool and even 0% tool, though I think that that's wrong. But it's how we use the tools. And so really focusing on why can't I deliver to production today and solving all those problems is CD. Safely, securely, with compliance, right? I mean, all these things are part of CD. And so I wish people would focus on that and not just say, oh, I have Azure DevOps, we're doing DevOps,
Right.
right? Um, and it's hard to tell. I mean, you go out there and um, if you are talking openly on social media, you're going to wind up in an echo chamber, no matter where you are. And so, I mean, this weekend I ran into somebody who claimed that a developer's job was just to be really good at data structures and algorithms, and business value wasn't their problem, which left me staggered and my jaw hit the floor. They would never work on my team. This was a developer saying this, not some toxic manager, right? And I don't ever want to see that attitude ever. That our job is solving problems, not coding.
Yeah.
We solve problems with code. It's like a carpenter's job isn't hammering. That's not what they do, right? And so I really want to see a trend of people falling in love with the business problem and also falling in love with how do I architect for delivery. I need to get things done. I need to stop worrying so much about process. I need to use a minimum viable process. But I need to make sure that I'm testing my code and that test leads code. I never commit untested code. And once people understand the importance of that, they should never commit untested code. And if they do, I consider that an ethical problem. And I'm pretty hardcore about that. You need to make sure it's working because we're going to ship it at 3 a.m. in the middle of a dumpster fire, and it better work.
Yeah. Right.
Because we need to fix production. That's our highest priority. And so I really want people, I really, if there's one trend, I'm seeing more people read Dave Farley's new book, Modern Software Engineering. And if everybody read that book, if that was required reading for any engineering course in college, the industry would be way better off.
Nice. We'll post the link in the in the follow-up email.
Constantine, I'm really sorry you're a DevOps architect. I'm really sorry someone hired you for that role. I would rebrand the role. My wife, when I got hired into Platform, she threatened to get Jason to call me a DevOps engineer, and so I caused some conflict. I am a value stream architect. I improve the flow of delivery.
I guess good follow-up on what you were saying is Q7 by Eric, which is what are the ways to cultivate the business problem awareness with engineers when solution and product is very technical in nature? So CI/CD tools, MLOps.
So this is something I'm going to be talking about at PlatformCon. Is platform as a product. The business problem Platform tries to solve is how to make other developers' lives easier. How do we keep them safe and secure while giving them the flexibility to do these jobs without feeling constrained, to remove friction from their daily work so that they can focus on solving their business problem instead of how to deliver the solution, right? That's Platform's job. I consider Platform being the highest goal of any good developer because they're right next to their customer and they understand their customer because it's us. Mm-hmm. What would you like to have if you were if you had a platform inflicted upon you? I was in a conversation yesterday with somebody talking about platform value metrics and how do you know the platform's doing well? I'm like, because no one talks to you.
It's like your kids when your kids don't call you, right? It's like,
yeah, you've got high utilization of platform and no one's talking to you. You know you're doing your job well. People only talk to you if they're unhappy, and so that's how you know. But I mean, just imagine. I mean, that's the job. That's what the goal of a platform is, and it's got to be productized. It's got to be treated exactly like any external customer-facing product if it's going to be done well. I'm going to talk about that at PlatformCon.
Nice. And I popped in the link for PlatformCon if anyone's curious about Bryan's talk. And Constantine smiles.
I really want to answer Jordy's question about.
Yes, let's do that.
It was everybody, Jordy. So yes, we absolutely had air cover and push from the top. We also had grassroots support. And we also had support in the middle in spots, right? And so we were trying to grow all of that. We were building the, just growing those pockets together into a broader community. I literally had a Slack channel called, the Red Shirts channel, where we had advocates that were helping to drive things in their areas, and some of those were just, almost entry-level developers. We also had VPs in there. We had product owners in there. We had all kinds of people in there. We would just find anybody who was an advocate and wrap our arms around them and hug them and bring them into the community.
Mm.
And so, yeah, you can't depend on just up here, because up here changes, and you can't just depend on grassroots because they don't have power. You have to make sure that you are building those bridges and keeping those lines of communication open, and we're all pulling the same way.
Yeah. We have the last question from Eric. What are ways to Dojo delivery for platform shared services solutions?
Well, I mean, it's a shared service. It's still a product, right? And so we did Dojo engagements internally in platform with some of the product teams in platform. And again, it's just product. I mean, you're working to deliver your thing. So how do we work with you on how we can deliver it better? And if you're talking infrastructure, and we've done it with infrastructure. If you're talking infrastructure, some of the techniques may change. You're not doing continuous delivery unless you're doing IOC, right?
Mm.
Or IAC. But a lot of the principles still apply, and we can help you apply those principles. How do we improve teamwork, and how do we break down the work into repeatable steps, and why can't we automate this thing?
Totally. All right. I think those were all the questions. I know that you have a plane to catch, Bryan. So I don't want to keep you for too long. So Bryan, you're going to Atlanta, right, for another talk?
So there's several of us who are on the core team for minimumcd.org, and two of us are going to be talking about why we built that and what we're hoping to accomplish at DevNexus, and we're going to be talking on Thursday at DevNexus.
There you go. If anyone is in Atlanta. But yeah, otherwise, we can, I guess, have a couple more minutes if anyone wants to pop in a final question that we can answer. So take the chance now. And otherwise, I was just curious about one last thing. So you mentioned at the very beginning the sort of the gamified aspect of the metrics that you picked. So can you elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, so we basically put star ratings on different aspects of delivery, and what we learned from that was that it was very effective at helping the leading edge. The people that were interested in wanting to improve. We had to be very careful with it for people on the lagging edge. Because we had to watch their managers very closely to make sure they weren't using it as a hammer. Okay. It also helped people that become CD curious in the middle, right? So they, what is the CD thing? And they'd reach out. And so it caused a lot of, the reason we started the dojo is because we started gamifying things. We started getting questions about how to improve scores.
Mm-hmm.
And so we started the dojo so we could just say, here, we'll help you. And we did all sorts of interesting things with gamification where we were taking the metrics and using it to help people find playbooks we'd written for things on how to do behavior-driven development, and how to do a code review better. I mean, just simple, basic things, right?
Yeah.
Focused on lean process and CD. And so we were using the metrics to say, hey, have you looked here? If you click here, this might help you.
Right. Renee is asking about size of the team and skill sets. I guess he's referring to the dojo team. I don't know, Renee, if you want to clarify that, but he's also asking what artifacts get produced.
So the artifacts of the dojo would be things like, the initial artifacts would be the value stream map, working agreement, the context diagram. We'd be looking at, who the stakeholders were so we could clear things. Final artifacts would be and also what are our baseline metrics for the things we are really focusing on.
Mhm.
Final artifacts would be metrics change, and everything we delivered.
Mhm.
So, because we were delivering, that's what we were doing. Right.
Yeah.
And then I think this is also important is that this is not like the Spotify model where people come in and work on Spotify stuff and learn how to do things better. We're using that team's work to learn as a group how to deliver that team's work better. So it's contextual to that team and not just broadly, this is kind of some good practices.
Mm. Yeah, we have a question here. How to address if companies are just focusing on tools?
Buy them a table saw and ask them to build fine furniture and step away.
Mhm.
I mean, it just doesn't work. Make it obvious that tools don't solve problems. In fact, a lot of times you throw tools at it and it causes problems. Right? Tools are the second thing you do after you identify what the problem is and how you best want to solve it, and then you find a tool that does that. Right? And then you learn how to use that tool effectively, but the tool itself doesn't solve anything except, well, it does do one thing well. It pays for boats for people who sell tools.
Yeah. Darren asking the $1 million question. So how do I sell CI/CD pipelines to a silent company that doesn't want to change anything?
I wrote an article. I've got a blog. If you go to rant.bryanfinster.com, they don't want to change anything because they're successful today. If for people to change, there has to be some motivation to change. It could be just intrinsic. We'd like to deliver better. But if they don't see any value personally in doing that, and you need them to change, then you change the environment so they're no longer successful the way they're delivering. Now, I'll say that the metrics were part of that. It was kind of, hey, look, you're not as successful as you think you are, right? Which you have to be very careful with because that can go wrong if you're not very careful with something like that. But, or JK saying we need every team being able to deliver every day. When the CTO says that your monthly cadence isn't working, suddenly you want to find ways to make that better. But as long as they're completely successful the way they are, they won't change. And you can't force them. And if you do, you'll get terrible results. It has to be a pull every single time. You cannot push it.
And so what was actually the size of the dojo team, and what different skill sets did you have?
Well, we were all engineers. We all had different language skills from each other. We had, based off what we were doing mostly was Java and JavaScripts. We're heavy in that. We would call in friends from different areas if we had things like Scala or C# or something where we didn't have the language. We didn't have the language. We would just call in allies and say, hey, can you help us out and come consult? But we were all engineers. Although we did, one of the team members, she was an agile coach, but she wasn't one of the shake and bake agile coaches. She went through a program where we were retraining people to come into tech, and so she went 3 months of training on how to improve the flow of delivery. And she was the scrum master on my team in logistics for several years, and then I stole her. When we moved to the dojo, because we also needed some of that process coaching that that she could also do, right? But the dojo team was relatively small compared to other dojos. Some of the enterprise dojos you're looking at like 20, 30 people. My wife has told me it's 12:58.
It's time to go.
But ours was always relatively small, but I never wanted to scale it large because with 18,000 developers or 19,000 developers, you can never make the dojo large enough to do that sort of interaction directly. And so there were several other things that we were doing to help scale that process. We were using towards the end, we were using Gary Groover's Engineering the Digital Transformation training to level set, this is what we're trying to accomplish, and then also to encourage people to come to us to learn how to do what we're doing so they can do that in their areas. So we can horizontally scale us instead of becoming a center of excellence, which we never wanted to be.
Totally. All right, Bryan. We have 1 minute left, and you have a plane to catch. So, thank you so much for the time and doing this with us. It was super interesting. Thanks everyone for the questions, and thank you, Konstantin. See you next week. Thank you,
Yeah.
Bryan, and I'll see you at PlatformCon.
Well, I'll just say that if anybody else wants to talk to me after this, I'm on LinkedIn quite a bit. And they can reach out to me there. And if they want to learn about to work for my company, where you mostly have to be a U.S. citizen because of what we do. So if you're in the U.S. and you want to discover all sorts of really hard delivery challenges, come talk to me.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll add your content, your LinkedIn profile to the follow-up email. So anyone, you'll get there and you can just follow up that way.
Absolutely, I appreciate it.
Amazing, Bryan. Safe flights, and see you at PlatformCon.
Yep.
Bye, everyone.